It has been a long road and full of challenges. Being bilingual on graduation day has been one of my greatest achievements because I now have the tool set to go on reaching all the objectives I might set for myself in the future. A world of opportunities opened up to me when I started studying with Richmond Solution. I was really able to learn autonomously. I could study at home, in the library, or in the classroom. I could dive into the book, or by being connected to the internet, I could explore fascinating activities that empowered my English skills. I was able to instantly access the answers as they were only a click away. I loved working in a team. My friends and I had great fun as we learned. I learned a lot from them, and I know that they learned something from me. The exams were always challenging, but thanks to the practice that was constantly available on the digital platforms, we were fully up to speed to meet these challenges. I am really going to miss my school.
Richmond Solution helped us hugely to transform the English program in our school. We have now got the best tools to guarantee the best learning. Let me show you. Part of the process gives us access to a coach who builds our confidence, as well as training courses to better our abilities and to continue our improvement. Yes, good teachers are always keen to learn more. As we live in the cloud, as we say in this connected world, we have digital resources to improve our classes and which allow our students to learn from anywhere in the world, even quite literally in the clouds if they are on board an airplane. Through the Richmond Test Manager and Learning Analytics, we have a variety of possibilities to test, validate, and monitor students' progress. It is amazing to be able to see how your students are learning and to have the evidence of their learning at your fingertips. This really does make us very happy indeed. Richmond Solution is a solution designed for you.
Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar. I'm Carolina Porras, and today I'm going to be here with you and with Mateo Gomez, who is our expert on Flip. So let me introduce Mateo.
Hi, how are
Mateo
you?
Gomez. Hi, Mateo. How are you?
I'm great. I'm just looking forward to share this space with you.
Great, Mateo. So let me tell our audience a little bit about you. Mateo is an academic consultant from Richmond Publishing House. He holds a Master in International Business Management and a BA in Modern Languages. He has more than 4 years of experience in virtual teaching with emphasis on flipped learning and more than 11 years of experience in the field of bilingual education. So Mateo, welcome. I think that we are all very happy and we are eager to listen to you and to learn so much from this webinar.
Well, thank you, Carolina, for that introduction. Also let me welcome our dear audience who always is here with us in all these formative spaces. Well, first off, let us know a little bit, where are you, no? Where are you watching us from, okay? So I've seen here, in the comments, like, well, we have uh, people from Cúcuta, teachers from
Mhm.
different parts. I don't know, Carolina,
Tunja,
what else?
Barranca
Tunja.
Bermeja.
Wow.
I saw a person from Toluca, Mexico.
Wow. All
So
right.
yeah,
Well,
we are
awesome.
very
Awesome.
happy to have everyone here.
Well, I have to well remind our audience that let's say that this is the second Richmond training cycle of the year. Remember that for these upcoming 3 weeks, we will deliver 3 webinars, of course, including this week, related to in-class flip. Okay, so today everything is based, Carolina, on in terms of foundations. We're going to well, talk a little bit about ideas and concepts that are around the in-class flip. Okay, and from there, I strongly invite you, of course, to the other webinars next week. Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, you are in charge of the second one, right?
Yes, I am. We are going to
Okay.
talk about a little bit in class flip and the language classroom.
Okay, awesome. So that's the thing. And then in the third week, we are going to talk a little bit about in-class flip and gamification, right? So, well, we hope you really find these formative spaces useful, meaningful. So that's the intention of having these webinars designed for you all. Okay, so in that order of ideas, Carolina, let's get started. What do you think?
Of course, Mateo. I think that everyone is eager to listen to and learn about flip.
Okay, awesome. So, in that order of ideas, what we're going to do is we're going to move on a little bit in terms of the today's agenda. Well, first off, we will start talking a little bit about the flipped learning approach. And for the purpose of this presentation, I will address to the traditional flipped learning approach and its benefits. And then we will define in-class flip, Carolina, so that we are able to kind of visualize the differences between the traditional flip learning approach and in-class flip. No? From there, I will briefly mention some ways for us to implement in-class flip in our classes, types of stations, station work in terms of base of learning model, and then I will share with you some of the benefits of implementing in-class flip and recommendations that, of course, I want to share with you today. Okay, so, well, feel free to participate actively as always. So, well, Carolina will be there, really attentive, all your comments. And if you have questions, please pose the questions, write down the questions. And, well, let's get started with that. Actually, I want to ask you, dear audience, in order for us to start this session, what do you know about the flipped learning approach? What have you heard about it? You could write there like keywords, or if you don't know anything about it, please just it's okay. Let us know. That's part of this type of formative spaces, so that we create these reflection moments, no, among teachers, well, the rest of the audience, of course. So I don't know, Carolina, if we have any comment from people there and from teachers, from schools about what is the flip learning approach.
Well, not yet, Mateo. Let's give
Okay.
them a little bit more time. Maybe they are shy or they are thinking about what to write.
Okay.
But I'm sure that most of us have heard about flip learning.
Okay.
But what is very interesting, I think, that for our audience is to know what is in class flip, right? Like, what is the twist? Because probably
Uh-huh.
we don't
Yeah.
know so much about it. So let's wait a little bit to see what they
Okay.
write.
Okay. Well, I see here that Gabriel
Uh huh.
wrote something about flipping the content. Yes, it's true. This is actually one of the key things or key aspects that we need to consider when integrating the flip learning approach. Remember, this will be first off the traditional flip learning approach. From there we move on into, of course, in class flip, which is the core of today's webinar. No, but well, in that order of ideas, let me just move on a little bit so that because I know that time is quite like limited there. So, well, based on the flip learning network, they refer to the flip learning approach as well, first of all, flipped learning as an approach. And actually there, what happens is that the direct instruction of the teacher is moved, shifted somehow from the group learning space to the individual learning space, so that the group, let's say the remaining learning space in the class time is devoted to develop, well, the multiple types of activities where the student is the center. What you want is to foster active learning, no? So that students can develop different thinking skills, no? So mainly high order thinking skills according to Bloom's taxonomy, but that's part of, let's say, the traditional flipped learning approach, no? And actually this happens, this same dynamic happens in class flip. Well, part of it, because here's where we're going to start differentiating a little bit the traditional flip learning approach with in class flip, no? Something beautiful about this approach, Carolina, is the fact that as let's say, like, the educator, or the role of the educator and teacher is transformed, so that we become guides and facilitators of the learning process of our students. And I would add that it's really important to be proactive. I mean, to have this attitude where you don't expect your students to ask you things, but you are there for them, and actually that they can feel and see that you are there for them, okay, during their own learning process. That is quite important. And again, this aspect of the role of the teacher happens is exactly the same in class flip, no? And then, of course, well, by integrating effectively this approach, well, we provide students with a flexible learning space, which is one of the other aspects there, no, that I wanted to mention. In terms of benefits, Carolina, some of the benefits here of the flipped learning approach, remember the traditional flipped learning approach, is that it fosters active learning, because the students are, the center of the activities. Therefore, they feel responsible somehow of their own learning process. And here, inside the approach, of course, we provide students with a flexible learning environment, because they are able to learn and to use and access to the material at their own rhythm, at their own pace, right? And the other thing, Carolina, that is awesome about this approach in general, and which I really love, is the fact that it's scalable. So that means that you don't need to flip over a whole unit, but you could start with some sections, with some activities, and you could start flipping those activities and that content, and from there you could eventually the whole unit. But it's awesome, because you could start with little things, with little aspects, little sections. So that's awesome. The other thing that normally we observe when integrating effectively the flipped learning approach is the fact that the level of engagements that students show towards the activities, of course, increases. And this, at the same time, the engagement with students, and let's say that this is the engagement between the student and the teacher, no? So we built up strong bonds with them, and because this is also related with the role of being an active facilitator, right? Something that is beautiful also about the flipped learning approach is the fact that we open up, let's say, reflection spaces, but also format. I mean, we are able to provide constant and continuous feedback. So therefore, which is related to the formative assessment, no? And this is really, really important inside the approach. So, well, with all this being said, I want to pose then a second question, Carolina. So this is for our audience, no? What is then in class flip? What would you say it would be the main differences here? No, so I haven't mentioned it, of course, but well, let's see, Carolina, if someone guesses
Sure.
or someone knows about in class flip. No, before, of course, I share with you the information.
Sure, Mateo. Let's wait for them. But while our audience starts writing, I would like to say something about flipped class, or
Sure.
sorry, the flipped learning approach that I really love, and is that we can use it in any subject. And that's something that that some other approaches are not really able, like to be used in a
Mhm.
different context than just teaching English. And the flipped learning approach can be used in any subject, in any moment, in any level, in any grade, right? So this is something that can be adaptable to any person that is listening to us right now. So that's something that I really, really love about this approach. That like how I don't know that it can be used for everyone in any moment. So that's something that for us to love the
Yeah.
flip learning approach, I think.
Yes, Carolina, totally true. I totally agree with you. The different levels of adaptability that you get with this approach. Well, let's say with the flipped learning approach in general, is like big, really big. You have different levels, and actually, something that I will help you with in terms of, well, and in this case for the audience, is by telling you that in class flip is a type of configuration of the flip learning approach. Okay, so this is one clue, one hint that I wanted like to give you. We're in class
Okay.
flip. I don't know, Carolina,
Okay.
if we have
We have
something
some
there.
comments. Yeah, we do. We do.
Okay,
We have
okay.
Barbara, and she's telling us that in an in-class flip, you can
Mhm.
flip content during a class and not only
Yeah.
before it. You
Wow.
can
Okay.
maybe also flip the instructions, she says.
Yes. All right, Barbara. Yes, you are completely right. Actually, that is one of the key aspects of in class flip, no? And well, that you keep all the elements of the traditional flipped learning approach, but within the same time class. So that's the key. That's the key. Yeah. All right. I don't know, Carolina. Do we have any other comments from
No, we
teachers?
don't, Mateo.
Okay, okay. So let's then move on. Don't worry about that one. Yeah, here I have like one definition. This one was coined back in 2018, right, by Cardoso and Paez. This one actually says that, well, in class flip can be defined as as moving the pre-task done at home into one part of the class that can be accessed individually and at each student's pace. So something great about having all aspects of the in-class flip approach inside the class is the fact that the teacher can control all those elements related with autonomous work from our students, right? Um, delivering like immediate feedback when needed, right, to our students. So if any question comes up during the use of the flip material, yeah, from students, well, the teacher is there. And well, from there, of course, all of the rest of the activities um, that are carried out throughout the lesson are controlled by the teacher, no, 100%. And this gives the teacher an advantage, of course, a lot. Okay, and yeah, this is the main core of in class flip, no. So everything happens. So when it says everything, it means that that direct instruction that in the traditional flip learning approach was moved outside the class time now is taken back into the class. Okay, so that means that we need to, I mean, when planning to integrate the in-class flip, we need to take into account the fact of giving students a space for them to be exposed to the flip content, to the flip material, right? This is, let's say, the core of in-class flip. No, I don't know, Carolina, if you want to mention something there, or I move on, or we
No,
have comments. Okay,
no, we
perfect.
don't.
Okay, awesome. So, well, talking a little bit about this, I wanted to just to briefly mention some ways of implementing in class flip. I have to say that these are not the only ones, but I would say that these are really common to see, which is I mean, we expose the students in the same lesson to the flip material, and from there, of course, our role would be an active guide, an active facilitator, whether if we expose our students individually, in pairs, or in small groups. I would suggest you include clear and concise instructions so that our students, well, they understand, and they yeah, they kind of know what they have to do with the material, or if there is a task after reading or watching the video, what do they need to do after? No? And another thing that I would suggest you do here is include always verification exercise so that you could, let's say that you could, before moving on into other different types of activities inside the lesson, we have to make sure that our students have understood, right? Whatever they read, whether they watched in the video, with some verification exercises. So this is a great suggestion before moving on into activities that foster higher order thinking skills, or where they have to apply things. So normally in this way, Carolina, of implementing in class flip, what the teachers normally do is, after exposing students to the flip material, they would create a list of tasks. Okay, so it's like, well, after reading or watching this video, please answer these two questions, and from there we move on into other different type of activities. To foster or apply knowledge, or evaluate something, or analyze. Okay, so according to the Bloom's taxonomy. From there, we have another way for us to implement in-class flip, which is through the learning model of stations. So here, the dynamic is students rotate around the class. Whether I'm here, I have to say it and mention it. It doesn't matter what type of class it is. So as Carolina mentioned it, this is great about in-class flip, because you can adapt it to any type of teaching learning environment, whether if you're working with a blended learning environment or online learning environment. Well, you are able to implement in-class flip, in this case through our stations. No? What is the dynamic with stations? There are some stations that have to be there, and I'm going to show you some examples of stations, of course, and there are others that may be optional. That depends on the type of it depends on different factors. For instance, the amount of students that you're working with, how much time do you have normally in a regular class or lesson, right? And from there, well, you can structure the different stations. Of course, each of them needs to have a clear purpose, no, behind, of course. And that's why I wanted to refer specifically to some examples of stations. I have to tell you that this is, let's say, you may find other names, others, let's say, so some teachers call some stations in another way, but I would say that mainly the function of them, it doesn't change a lot, okay? Specifically, in this type of configuration from the flip learning approach, which is in class flip, one station that needs to be there is the flip station, right? So the dynamic here is that inside the flip stations is where students find that flip material, that flip content, and the instructions, of course, or whatever they need to do. And what is great about it, Carolina, is that you can design and structure this station digitally or physically. So actually, that is awesome, because again, it doesn't matter if you're working in blended learning environment or online learning environment, you could do it. Or if you're, with your students inside the classroom, it doesn't matter. Okay, so that is awesome. But this one is not optional inside the configuration. You need to have the flip station. Okay, from there, another station that I would say is necessary to have is the practice station, and here is where students put into practice what they have learned, what they have read, what they have watched in the flip station. Okay, now the amount of stations and the type of activities that you carry out inside these stations depends directly on, well, the content, what type of skills you want to work with your students in terms of thinking skills, and also depends on the amount of students. No, so I have seen teachers duplicating or triplicating, for instance, the practice station. So instead of having one, I have three, right? With the same activity or with different activities, but all of them, the main purpose is to open up spaces for students to apply what they have learned or what they have been exposed to in the flip station. No? And there's a moment, or one of those practice stations should ask students to come up with something, no? With an outcome. And then is where I try to align that with the following station, which is peer or group station. So here actually students show that outcome to another audience, to, let's say, to another classmate or to a group of students. And in that way, we activate metacognitive processes, right? So that allowed students to reinforce what they are actually showing, no? In terms of mastery, that the content of the class. No? So that's great. Sorry. There are some let's say there are some teachers, or the flipped learning teachers or in class flip teachers that refer to the teacher station or the feedback station. So here is where students who are actually struggling have the opportunity to go and say, okay, teacher, I'm quite lost here. Can you give me any type of additional instruction or guidance? So here is that place where students may find that. No, if you're working, let's say, online, based on online teaching, this station could contain additional infographics material for students to understand a little bit more the dynamic of the practice stations, for instance. Okay, and the fast finisher station, normally you use it as an extra resource. So it's a space for those students, for instance, that show up late to the class and that they are just arriving to the dynamic of the stations. So they may find their games or silent reading activities related to the topic of the class, or they have to watch an extra video, etc. Or also are for those students who are waiting to rotate to the next station. Okay, and this is the thing, Carolina, that I wanted to mention. It's really important that to understand the dynamic of the sequences, no, and that's why I wanted to mention that here. Okay, so normally, we would see here like this movement of a linear sequence where the teacher let's say the teacher asks students to move from one station to the other in a specific order, right? So you go into the flip station. From there, you move on into the, let's say, practice station number 1, the practice station number 2, so on, so on, so on, so that they complete, a linear sequence. But then, and this one, something that is positive is the fact that you control all aspects in terms of you avoid a lot of chaos there. And but when students get the dynamic of this type of in-class flip lessons, probably they will ask for more. And so in that case, I would use sometimes the mixed sequence, and the big, or I would say the positive aspect of this type of sequence when working with station work configuration is the fact that it provides students with the power of choice. No, so they may go first to practice station number 2, then they go practice station number 1, but they must, go to the flip station. That's the condition. They need to be exposed to the material. Okay. I don't know, Carolina, if there is any question, comment in our chat, or if I may move on.
There are no questions yet, Mateo. I think that everybody is paying so much attention to this interesting topic. And something that I would like to add, if you may allow me to, is to say that in both cases, something that is important is that, as you were saying, these outcome students need to have at the end. It has to be a must. And as a recommendation, I would give teachers is to leave this outcome station the last. So in these mixed sequence stations, you can tell students to go over the ones they want to. They do have to go to flip station, of course, and leave the outcome station like at the end, so that they can build throughout the whole stations the outcome that you would expect for them to do as a teacher.
Yes, Karina, thank you for that comment. Actually, it's quite important because by asking them to create an outcome, we actually empower them, no? Kind of like, you are responsible of your own learning process. I'm here for you, but, at the end is like you show what you have learned, and yeah, with that, of course, we kind of reinforce what their knowledge, no, at the end. That's part of the objective. Well, let's move on a little bit in terms of some of the benefits. I mean, why in class flip? And here, first off, as I told you before, because this in-class flip configuration keeps all aspects of the flip learning approach at the school, in the classroom, or in the lesson. So whether if you're working right now at the school with all your students in the classroom, or if you have like this blended learning environment, well, you will be able to structure and design all this work, whether if it's throughout stations or not. Okay. Remember that here, the main condition, as Barbara mentioned it, was or is actually in class flip to expose the audience, in this case, your students, to a certain flip or a certain content, which is considered to be the flip material, um, well, in the lesson. Okay, that's part of it, and that's why. And actually, I know that this second benefit will be shown a little bit more in depth in the second webinar, no, Carolina? Like you will refer a little bit about the examples, no, in class flip in the classroom language. And that's why, well, I wrote this one, okay? So it can be integrated in different teaching and learning environments. Actually, that is what was mentioned before, no? And well, but finally, it triggers the activation of multiple thinking skills in class. You know that one of the, I would say, main objectives of in-class flip and in general the flip learning approach, but in this case specifically in class flip, is the fact that we want our students not only to memorize and understand information, but that they can also apply it, or sometimes kind of analyze it or evaluate it, and even come up with new ideas based on previous ones. No, this is quite important as well. I forgot to mention that, but it's the fact that we need, I mean, the type of activities that we ask our students to carry out inside the practice stations, if you're working with practice stations, they need to be kind of scaffolded in a way so that we cannot ask like immediately, our students to, I mean, okay, after watching this video, come up with an video about this. No, I mean, we need to kind of scaffold things. We need to give them time and spaces for them to evaluate, to analyze first, right? To apply knowledge in general. And from there is where we ask them to kind of, come up with a certain type of tangible outcome, no? If it's tangible, okay, so that's better. All right.
Mateo, I'm sorry
yes,
for
Carolina.
interrupting you, but
Yes, sure.
there is a question about stations.
Mhm.
Ana Carolina is asking, is the station model recommendable for young learners, 5 to 8 years old?
Wow, yes, of course it is. What's the name, sorry, of
Ana
the person?
Carolina.
Ana Carolina. Yes, Ana Carolina is strongly recommended. Actually, I promise you that it will dynamize your class. However, and here's what I want like to share with you. Actually, this is part of the following slide. There are some recommendations and there are some things that I would say considerations that are quite important to take into account. First off, if you're working with this range of ages, or whether if you're working with, I mean, from ages from 5 to 8, or secondary or university levels, or at university levels, it's quite important to deliver clear and concise instructions from the beginning, okay? So that students, well, first off, they understand what they need to do in each stage. That means whether if you're working with stations or not. So if you're not working with stations, they also need to understand what they need to do, let's say with the reading, no? Or with the video, or with, yeah. So if they understand that from the very beginning, you will, I would say, avoid some chaos inside the class, no? So that is quite important. I strongly recommend to use this type of stations. You could start, of course, not with all, let's say, with a complex configuration or amount of stations there. No, I would suggest you could start with flip stations, of course, and from there, well, you could go with the practice station. Now, as I told you before, there are some things which will influence, of course, the dynamic of working with this learning model station, which is how much time do you have for your classes, no? So I have seen teachers that um, they have to deliver these classes 40 minutes, and they got like in total, I would say 80 minutes weekly. So in that order of ideas, what they do is they work, for instance, those first 40 minutes will be for uh, flip stations and probably one or two practice stations. But and then the other 40 minutes, yeah, in the next lesson, it would be for working with practice stations and peer stations, right? So this is one way, but it depends again, because if you are delivering classes of around 2 hours, I would say that probably it's okay for you to complete, the whole, I would say a whole sequence, you know. But again, it depends of a lot of things. There is no, I would say that there is no uh, like official guide on about how many stations should I integrate in the class. But it's more about the dynamic. It's more about the objectives behind each station. But remember, if you want to integrate or implement in class flip, the station that is a must is the one that mentioned Carolina, which is the one where we ask the students to show their mastery with a tangible outcome at the end, but then also the flip station, right? So that we expose the students, not to that. And really, really important, so whether if you're working with stations or not, is in these clear instructions that you give your students is add time frames for whatever you ask them, your students, to do inside this in-class flip lesson. Okay, so okay, dear students, you'll have 10 minutes for you to watch the video, then 5 minutes for you to, and you could, let's say, project and stopwatch if it's an online lesson, or you could project it in the classroom if it's necessary. You could use external tool there. But the idea is that they are also conscious about the importance of time and working toward a specific result in a specific amount of time, so that actually this will prevent students from getting distracted, no, also from the tasks. So time frames are quite important when working with stations or not, no? So that's another thing. And of course, as one of the pillars inside the flip learning approach, and which also applies inside in class flip, is the fact of opening these reflection spaces. No, I think it's important not only for the teacher to like provide with constant feedback, but also to receive and to get from students like their opinions in terms of what they think of the activities that were carried out there during the lesson on that, because there is always something that could be improved, no, inside an in-class flip lesson. And well, as I told you before, this is aligned with one of the four pillars of in-class flip, which is professional educator. No, always to have that attitude of growth mindset, an open mind, and yeah, just to receive all the comments there. I don't know, Carolina, if we have any other question, comment there, or if you want to add something.
We don't have any, but something that I would also recommend
Mm-hmm.
when planning in class flip, considering these time frames that we give students, is also to include in our lesson plan the time students will take moving from one station to the other,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it's online. Right, we need to consider this because sometimes we plan our classes like with a very strict time schedule, and then we don't allow students this movement from one station to the other, and probably time won't be enough for them to finish. So that's something important. It's a little thing, but it might help teachers to plan a little bit better.
Sure. Yeah. And also to, I mean, I would say that students will understand and get everything like clearer, no? Like, okay, so I understand that I have only 5 minutes for me to read this article, and from here I will have to go into the practice station to do this and this and that. And yes, it's quite important to mention there. Here, well, I have prepared like a really brief, as you know, as usual, as we normally do here in our webinars in Richmond. I kind of prepare some questions for you, kind of a true and false activity, just to interact a little bit with you, with the audience. But before that, I want to ask you, audience, do you have questions here so far? Like any common question or something that probably you wanted like to go deeper before I get into the the activity that I prepared for you?
Let's wait for our audience.
Okay, audience, I'm really happy, Carolina, that I mean to know that we have people from all over around the world, because I read there in some of the comments that we have even people from Mexico, right?
Mexico,
So,
Guatemala,
hello, Mexico.
Peru.
Wow.
We have
Okay.
like, yeah, big
My God.
audience today, so it's excellent.
That's excellent. Again, by the way, before I forget, also remember that at the end of this webinar, you will get, let's say, a link for this. It's a survey, so just please, remember to fill in the survey, because it's quite important for us, now to provide with the high quality, academic support always, no, from Richmond. So, well, I don't know, Carolina, any further comment there, or shall we,
No,
move
maybe we
on?
can start with the questions for
Okay.
the audience.
All right. Okay. So let's see if you were attentive, no, to all the information that we have done here.
I'm
So,
sure they were. I'm so sure.
okay. So let's see. Let's see if it's true. So, true or false? And well, you'll see these type of statements, and the dynamic here, of course, is that you tell us if it's true or false. So, the first one is, Carolina says, in the flipped learning approach, the teacher is the center of the class.
Okay, so true, false. Ta, 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 tan. Let's
True or
see what our
false?
audience will say about it.
The flip.
I'm not going to answer it. I don't want to give any hints or maybe say something incorrect.
Yeah. So remember, in the flipped learning approach, the teacher is the center of the class. Is this
Mhm.
true or false?
Okay, we have
What do
some
you think?
false here in the
False?
comments. False, false.
Okay. So let's see, Carolina.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
so it's false.
Very good. Excellent.
Very good.
I
So,
told you they were paying attention.
yeah. Okay, this is active learning then. Okay, that's awesome. So, yes, remember, dear audience, that, and remember, here we are referring to the traditional in-class flip approach, but also this applies to in-class flip, okay? So, most of the activities are student-centered, and when I say most, is because if I mean, if it's necessary, it's okay to, I would say, go into the center of the class, and take control of the class and explain something briefly if it's necessary. But that's why most of the activities and the real dynamic inside the flipped learning approach is, to cover activities in a way so that students feel that are the center of those activities, and the teacher becomes a facilitator. And here I would add, Carolina, an active facilitator, because it's not simply to say, oh, yes, well, I'm here if you need me, and that's it. But it's really important to be proactive, no? So, well, as I mentioned before. Well, very well. So let's see. Let's see the next one. So it says, in the flipped learning approach, the direct instruction of the teacher is taken out from the class time. So in the
Okay,
flipped
let's
learning
see.
approach, this is the
Okay, we have a
flipped learning
true.
approach.
Our audience,
Okay.
true. We have Diana, she says true. Sarah says
Okay,
true.
so
Daniela, okay.
so yes, okay, that's true. So in the flipped learning approach, remember again, this is the traditional flipped learning approach. The direct instruction of the teacher is taken from the group learning space into an individual learning space outside the class, so that in the group learning space that is remaining, the teacher is able to carry out multiple types of activities to foster high order thinking skills. I would say that mainly that is what a flipped learning teacher wants inside the lesson to happen, no? so that students develop, critical thinking skills, and well, they're able to kind of apply knowledge, analyze it, evaluate it, and well, come up with new ideas and things. Okay, and well, let's see, Carolina. There's a third statement here. This one says, one benefit from flipped learning and in-class flip is the creation of spaces to provide summative assessment. Summative assessment,
True,
and it's
false.
underlined.
Let's see. Is this a
This-
tricky one, Mateo?
Yes, it is.
Okay, some people are saying true. Let's see.
Okay, so we have truth. Okay.
True, yeah.
Interesting. All right. So
Yeah.
one benefit from flipped learning and class flip is the creation of spaces to provide summative assessment.
Okay,
So in that
true.
one-
We have one false over there, like hidden
Wow.
among all the true.
Okay, so if I let's then analyze it a little bit. So Carolina, is it? I mean, what is it for you? Summative assessment.
Okay, summative is when we give students grades, right?
Exactly.
Like when we tell them like this was a 4 or a 5.
Okay, so it's like kind of an evidence. Let's call it like that. An evidence of learning, which is of course necessary.
Of course.
An evidence of learning represented with a number, with a letter, etc. Right? But remember, dear audience, that we mentioned that something that is beautiful about the flipped learning approach and the traditional flipped learning approach and this in-class flip configuration is the fact of providing, with spaces where we deliver constant feedback. So when you deliver constant feedback to your students, you are providing with formative assessment. It's a way for us to so it doesn't mean that inside the flip learning approach or in class flip we don't use summative assessment. Of course we do. Actually, it's quite necessary. But this is what is beautiful about the approach and the configuration of in class flip, that you are able to be there as a role of as a facilitator. No, you provide constant feedback. You share your thoughts about your students' work, and that's why it will be false, okay? Because the statement emphasizes the fact of summative assessment, but this one is formative assessment. Let's see another one, okay? When implementing in class flip without stations, students need to study the flipped content before the class. So let's see here.
Okay, let's see
When
what our audience
implementing.
is going to tell us.
Okay, so let's see here. When
We get a
implementing,
very funny comment. It says like, this is false as my ex-girlfriend.
oh my god. Okay. Hey,
Okay,
well,
maybe.
so let's see.
Very
And yes,
good,
well, I don't know
John.
about your ex-girlfriend, but yes, it is complete false, because remember that here students are exposed to the flip material in the same session, right? That's why it's called in-class flip. And whether if you're working with stations or not, this is a condition, that needs to happen in order for us to actually say, okay, yeah, we're integrating in class flip. All right. So that moment of exposing students to a certain type of video, article, flashcard, infographic, etc. Well, that is considerable to be, that is exposure of flip content or material. Okay. So it happens. No? So it's false. In-class flip can be integrated, and I would say that this is the last one. In-class flip can be integrated in different teaching learning environments, whether if you're working with, like, let's say, online classes, blended learning environment. What do you say, dear audience, true or false, according to the information that we have shared so far?
Wait for them to type. We
Uh-huh.
have a comment here. Before I tell you what they're saying, it says that in-class flip promotes spaces where students increase their knowledge. So true.
That's true. Okay. And actually, this is true. Yeah. So, we were talking about this before, the different levels of adaptability, the different ways that you can integrate this type of configuration in terms of in-class flip into the dynamic of your class or your lesson. is great and is really wide. So well, you get to dynamize your class. Something that Carolina have to say is that well, during this lockdown, and now that we have to kind of readapt to a different dynamic, um, we have come across with the need of like on one hand, like dynamizing our classes, but on the other, so that our classes don't decrease in terms of academic level. So this is one really effective strategy tool configuration, that I strongly invite you to, well, I would say, like, implement if it's possible, and study a little bit more, because I promise you that it will bring a lot of benefits, both for you and for your students. In terms of references, the ones that I would strongly recommend you check are the blog from Carolina Buitrago. Then we have Jennifer Gonzalez, Marta Ramirez, and Caitlin Tucker. So, just for you to get a little bit more, in depth in terms of this topic of in-class flip. Again, something that is quite important is, please don't forget to fill in, the survey for today's space. And we really hope you enjoyed this space as much as we did. And I also invite you to join us next week, the same hour, the same place, for our second webinar related to in-class flip and the language class. Then remember that the week after, Silvia Maldonado will deliver the webinar related to in-class flip and gamification. So, well, again, thank you very much. I don't know, please, in this case, Carolina, can you confirm if the link for the survey was sent through the chat box or no?
Yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, it is there for our audience. So thank you, Mateo. I think that it was very interesting. We've enjoyed a lot. We've learned a lot, which is always important for teachers, because with this pandemic, we have been challenged so much. First, to go virtual, just like from one day to another, and now in these blended spaces that teachers still struggling with. So this is a very, very useful approach for them to use in their classes and to improve their teaching practices. And what you were saying is so true. We want our students to learn, right? That's our main objective as teachers. So we are sure that by implementing in-class flip, they will learn, and they will learn a lot.
For sure, that's true. Thank you, Carolina, also for for being here with me. And we'll see you then next week. I would say the next space. Now you will be there delivering the webinar, right?
Yeah.
So, and
yes.
dear audience, again, thank you for always here with us. Always active there, participating, because all your comments, thoughts, and opinions are really important, to us. Okay, so thank you very much again, Carolina, and dear audience.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
All right, bye bye.
It has been a long road and full of challenges. Being bilingual on graduation day has been one of my greatest achievements because I now have the tool set to go on reaching all the objectives I might set for myself in the future. A world of opportunities opened up to me when I started studying with Richmond Solution. I was really able to learn autonomously. I could study at home, in the library, or in the classroom. I could dive into the book, or by being connected to the internet, I could explore fascinating activities that empowered my English skills. I was able to instantly access the answers as they were only a click away. I loved working in a team. My friends and I had great fun as we learned. I learned a lot from them, and I know that they learned something from me. The exams were always challenging, but thanks to the practice that was constantly available on the digital platforms, we were fully up to speed to meet these challenges. I am really going to miss my school.
Richmond Solution helped us hugely to transform the English program in our school. We have now got the best tools to guarantee the best learning. Let me show you. Part of the process gives us access to a coach who builds our confidence, as well as training courses to better our abilities and to continue our improvement. Yes, good teachers are always keen to learn more. As we live in the cloud, as we say in this connected world, we have digital resources to improve our classes and which allow our students to learn from anywhere in the world, even quite literally in the clouds if they are on board an airplane. Through the Richmond Test Manager and Learning Analytics, we have a variety of possibilities to test, validate, and monitor students' progress. It is amazing to be able to see how your students are learning and to have the evidence of their learning at your fingertips. This really does make us very happy indeed. Richmond Solution is a solution